The manhole cover rocked, then slid with a heavy scrape. Two hands pushed it up from below. A pale dawn light spilled into the hole like cold water. First came David, thin, fast, breathing hard. Then Richard, bigger, older, eyes sharp. Both wore dirty clothes they had turned inside out to look like street jackets. They had crawled through dark tunnels for hours. Now they were under the quiet streets of Dannemora, New York, not far from the gray walls of Clinton Correctional Facility. They froze. No cars. No people. Just mist, empty sidewalks, and the soft buzz of a streetlight. David whispered, "We did it." Richard grinned, but his smile didn't last. He looked to the corner where a small car was supposed to be waiting. Headlights would blink twice. The door would open. A woman would wave them in. That was the plan. The corner was empty. No car. No woman. No second chance. Richard felt the morning air bite his face. "Where is she?" he hissed. David scanned the street, heart pounding like a drum. They had risked everything for this moment. They had cut through steel, crawled inside frozen pipes, and dodged guards in the middle of the night. The prison employee who promised to help them, Joyce, was supposed to be here. And then, far away, a siren wailed, one long cry, then silence. The two men stared at each other. Back below was darkness. Ahead was freedom or trap. The street stayed empty. David pulled the manhole cap halfway back, ready to drop if he had to. Richard's jaw tightened. The plan had just changed, and they did not know how. Earlier, months before that dawn, the prison felt like it always did, hard, cold, and loud in a quiet way. Clinton Correctional Facility sat like a stone castle at the top of the town. Inside the walls was a city of rules. Doors buzzed. Boots echoed. Guards counted. Inmates learned the traffic of the day. Chow, shop, yard count, lights. Everything was the same until it wasn't. David's sweat lived by timing. He was younger, quick on his feet, and very good at learning patterns. Who walked where, which locks clicked slow, and when the noise of the building hid small sounds. Richard Matt was older. He liked to draw, to talk, to make friends he could use later. He had a soft smile that had sharp thoughts. Together, in a place where trust breaks easy, they found a way to use each other's skills. In the prison tailor shop, a supervisor named Joyce Mitchell, everyone called her Joyce, ran a corner of the world that smelled like fabric and machine oil. She handed out thread and cloth. She joked to make long days shorter. She carried keys that opened small doors leading to bigger ones. She was friendly, then more than friendly. She liked attention. She liked feeling needed. Richard noticed. David noticed too. It started with small things. "Nice work," Joyce said, tapping a seam David had sewn. "You got quick hands." Richard gave Joyce a sketch he made, her face in pencil, smiling. She blushed. Later she brought cookies, not too many, just enough to make the room feel warm. Rules said workers should not get close. Rules said no extra favors. But rules feel smaller when the days feel long. Joyce began to talk to them more than others. The line between just a boss and someone who cares blurred. Richard was careful. He asked about her life, her husband, her worries. He praised her for little things that other people ignored. He made her laugh. He made her feel seen. He made her feel strong. David stayed mostly quiet, watching, learning what Richard was building, something like a bridge and a trap at the same time. Then the talk turned into plans. Quiet plans. Dangerous plans. Richard began to ask for tools he said were for shop work. A small screwdriver. A bit of sandpaper. A tape measure. Nothing big. Nothing scary. Each piece looked harmless by itself. A week later, a surprise. Thin metal blades wrapped in plastic and tucked where no one would look. They were hacksaw blades, the kind that could kiss through steel if you were patient and didn't mind sparks in the dark. Joyce didn't carry them through the gate herself. Someone else placed them in packages that looked like food. That way, she could tell herself it wasn't really her. But it was. She knew. At night, when the block went quiet and the building sighed, David listened. Every prison has a heartbeat. Pipes groan, steam hisses, old fans rattle. If you sit long enough, You hear the seams. David mapped the sounds in his head. He pressed his ear to the wall. He counted seconds between patrols. He measured the space under the bed. He learned which officers looked too hard and which ones only looked tired. Richard watched the people. He noticed who bragged, who gossiped, who fought, who did not. He kept guard, smiling with small talk. He drew pictures for workers. He said things that made people think he was safe. Even when he was not, he was planting seeds. In prison, you plant with words, then wait to harvest chances. One evening, during the soft hour after count, David tapped the wall behind his bunk. A hollow ring came back. Not solid. That meant a chase space, a crawl behind the cells, maybe a line of old pipes and ducts. He tapped again. Same sound. His eyes lit with a cold kind of hope. If they could cut to the back of the cell, they might find a path where no one walked anymore. They began to cut, slow and secret. The hacksaw blade whispered against iron. 2 strokes, pause. 3 strokes, stop. Listen. A guard's boots thumped past. David slid the blade under the mattress. Richard coughed loudly to bury the tiny scrape of metal. The dance went on for nights. Joyce brought more blades, more small things wrapped inside bigger things, because once you step over a line, the next line feels closer. On one deadly quiet night, they lifted a square of steel from behind a poster. A dark space yawned open like a mouth. David squeezed through, folding himself small. He landed on a catwalk covered in dust and old paint chips. A warm breath of air brushed his face. Steam from the guts of the building. He reached back and helped Richard through. They were inside the prison's body now, a place of old pipes and forgotten doors. They moved like mice. Below them, officers drank coffee and swapped stories. Above them, men slept, dreamed, and snored. David traced pipes with his fingers as if reading Braille. He found a big one, a steam line that ran like a hot, steel river out toward the night. If we follow this, he breathed, we might reach the tunnel. Richard nodded, his smile back. Days dragged. Nights flew. Joyce kept risking more. The plan grew teeth. She would meet them outside at a set corner, engine running, heater on, 2 extra coats in the back seat. I'll be there, she whispered, eyes wet. I'll do it. Richard squeezed her hand with a look that said she was saving his life. David avoided her eyes. Even now, a small part of him did not believe a promise could carry this much weight. Before the last night, there were close calls, a random cell search, a guard who looked too long at the poster behind the bunk, a count that didn't add up fast enough. Richard told a joke at the right time. David faked a cough. A friend across the tier made a loud noise to draw eyes away. Each time, the danger missed them by inches. Each time, their courage didn't feel like courage, just the next step they had to take because they had already taken the last one. Finally, the night came. The block lights dimmed. The building settled. They lifted the steel square and slipped into the wall. David led, Richard followed. They crept along the catwalk, then dropped into a lower crawl, then squeezed through a round pipe that kissed their shoulders with cold. Somewhere a valve hissed. Somewhere a clock clicked. David's fingers found bolt heads, hot and rough. He turned them with a stolen wrench. Half a turn, then another, then a hard twist with both hands. The cover loosened. A breath of air that did not smell like prison. Wet, sandy, alive, washed over them. They slid into a larger tunnel. Water dripped. The sound was like faraway rain. David's knees hurt. Richard's back ached. They kept going. They had the time between 2 counts and no more. If a guard peeked into the cell and saw a bed that looked like a bed but was a painted shape of blankets, it might buy them minutes. Not hours. Minutes. That was a thin rope they walked on. At last, their hands met a round, cold circle with finger holes, a manhole from below. David pushed. It shivered and stayed. Rust held it down like a stubborn lock. Richard pressed his shoulder under it and lifted with a low growl. The cover slid an inch. Outside air poured in like a promise. They pushed again. The cover moved. They climbed. And up in the dawn, the street was quiet and the corner was empty. The plan that had sounded clean now felt like a story they told themselves to stay brave. David scanned for the car. Richard looked for any light, any blink, any shadow shaped like help. Nothing. A siren moaned once in the distance. Another answered, faint like a question. David's chest tightened. "We split," he whispered. Richard shook his head. "No, we stick to the plan." He lifted his sleeve to show a scrap of paper with a small map sketched in pencil, the route if they had to walk. "If she's not here," he said, jaw hard, "we go on foot." "Daylight is coming," David said. "We don't have a choice," Richard replied. They slid the manhole cover almost back in place, leaving a thin crack, so fingers could find it again if they had to drop fast. David pulled the cap low. Richard tucked his collar in like a man heading to the corner store. They stepped onto the quiet street, two figures in a town just beginning to wake up. Behind them, the prison would soon discover the hole in the wall, the path in the guts, the empty beds. Radios would shriek. Officers would pound doors. The news would roll cameras. But at this second, the only sound was their breath and the soft crunch of their steps on coal grit. They reached the corner where the car should have been. Still no car. Still no Joyce. Richard's eyes cut left, then right. He swallowed a word that wasn't fit for daylight. David felt his heart beat in his throat. He touched the map in Richard's sleeve like a lucky coin. A police cruiser turned the far end of the block. Not fast, not slow. Just a routine loop in a small town at dawn. Its headlights swept the street like a hand. Richard grabbed David's arm. "Now," he whispered. They moved. And just as they slipped into the shadow between two houses, a porch light clicked on. A dog barked. The cruiser's brake lights flared red for half a second, like an eye catching the wrong detail and trying to decide if it mattered. David and Richard pressed into the cold siding, barely breathing. The empty corner behind them like a broken promise, and the whole town ahead like a maze they had to solve before the sun fully rose. The dog barked again. The cruiser paused. And the game they thought they were playing with 3 people, 2 inmates and 1 employee, suddenly felt much bigger, with the whole world waking up to join. The porch door opened. Footsteps. The cruiser's engine hummed. Richard's hand tightened on David's sleeve. They waited for what would happen next.